Welcome back to another edition of the Scarlet and Gray Report podcast. My name is Colin Gay. I cover Ohio State for Scarlet and Gray Report, Ohio State's, the Ohio State side in the Rivals Network. Just got back from covering Ohio State's spring game, where if you care or you have money on it or you're keeping track at home, I don't know how you did, but the Team Scarlet beat Team Gray, good for the brand, 34-26. We just had the offense pitting up against the Ohio State defense. And really, like I said, the score really didn't matter here, but there were some major takeaways. And obviously, there's a lot that happened, and it happened very, very quickly. So expect for another episode later this week when I have a chance to rewatch this and possibly bring on Zach Carpenter, our recruiting reporter, and another team writer for us. But to talk about it and kind of dissect, because there's going to be more to see and more to talk about and a lot to get into. But here, I just kind of wanted to get into a couple of my kind of first takeaways, my instant reactions from this game. And I guess I really want to start with the defensive backs. And I know that this was a place of kind of trouble for Ohio State last year, the pass defense, and especially in the middle of the field with just opposing offenses taking advantage of those holes in the zone, not having that dominant just presence, and especially with at safety and those spots. I mean, Cameron Brown and Denzel Burke were very good at times for Ohio State last year on the outside, but it was specifically that middle of the field, the ones that guard the slot receivers, the tight ends, those guys. And I think really when you look at it and when you see the change that has happened, and I think it started with, bringing Jim Knowles in, bringing Perry Eliano in, bringing Tim Walton in. And I know I'm going big picture here, but I think that's what this takes, because we didn't see a lot of change for Ohio State, in terms of scheme and things like that. However, and this is why the big picture is important, you saw energy. You saw this life for this defense that, Jim Knowles brings, that Perry Eliano brings, that Tim Walton has brought. It revitalized this room. You see a lot more energy. You see guys like Kai Stokes kind of embracing this opportunity where the safeties room is overflowing, but it's not a lot of guys who are game ready. And Ryan Day talked about this the other day, about how that is a concern. And how guys are kind of waiting to be brought in, and they have guys that are ready to go. They're just not in a place, whether it's injury, like Josh Proctor, which we'll get into in a moment, because I think he sets the tone here. But they're just not game ready, or they're not here, or they're not ready, because and it's a room that got smaller with the loss of Bryson Shaw and Ledger Cavazos, who played a lot of the nickel position. But you see Kai Stokes from the get-go, because he had an opportunity to shine because of in kind of a smaller room, because of the amount of unavailable guys that were unavailable. Multiple pass breakups. You saw him embrace this opportunity. He finished second on the team, 9 tackles, 2 pass breakups. And that's kind of mostly, he was in during the tackle period. So he was getting in on people and making kind of the life in the middle of Ohio State's defense something that was kind of a given all like last year at this time, but instead he was making it a living hell for them, which, for a freshman, Ohio State's already seen this. He was the first freshman to lose his black stripe, second person in the 2022 class, other than Tanner McAllister, who's a redshirt senior, came from Oklahoma State with Jim Knowles. This guy has been blowing people away this spring, and we got kind of that first glimpse. We haven't seen much of practice because Ohio State kind of closes that off to the media, but this was kind of our first opportunity to see, oh yeah, Kai Stokes is really good, and he's really the real deal. And Jim Knowles said in the press conference afterwards that he expects young players, whether it's Kai he was talking about. I mean, he had high things about high praise for Kai Stokes after this game, but he said young guys are going to make an impact on this team. And I think Kai Stokes is going to be one of them, but that's not the only person in the defensive backfield that I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to talk about Jordan Hancock. And I think one of the things, he had back-to-back plays that really stuck out to me. And it's the clear plays. I mean, if you watch the game, this is kind of, it was the back-to-back, whether it was a pass breakup, it was a pass breakup on Marvin Harrison Jr. That he kind of just got in front of. He was just all over this guy, and who could be one of the best guys in or best wide receivers in the country. But he was draped over him. Second play, right after, you see him get into the backfield, the defensive backfield, and tackle Mayan Williams for a TFL. I mean, this guy's everywhere. And I think Ryan Days mentioned that. Tim Walton was clear on that at the coaches clinic, how great Jordan Hancock has been, especially in press man situations. You see this guy who's eager. You see a guy in a small room. In cornerbacks, with the loss of Legend Cabasas, there's only 6 guys, 6 scholarship guys, so like 3 groups of 2. So in that span, it'll be Denzel Burke and Cameron Brown as the starters, Jordan Hancock and J.K. Johnson as the second string, and then the rookies. You got Jair Brown and Ryan Turner. Those are the third string at this point, but it's really that second team, that second string. Ryan Day, Tim Walton speaks very highly of both J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock. Jordan Hancock showed why this afternoon and what he's been able to do. But I think, I mean, and one of the things I wanted to get into, and I think this is not a thing that's been talked about. This is not a thing that a lot of people may have, gotten from this spring game. However, I think it's important to say, and it may be a little bit of a stretch. So you saw Josh Proctor out there for the first time since he had a compound fracture in the Oregon game last year, ending his season. Okay. And you saw this guy, I mean, he was only playing during the third period. So he wasn't doing full tackle. He wasn't doing full contact. He was participating in like just team activities. So he was on the field for Ohio State this afternoon. You saw a safety who, from the moment that he took the field, okay, he made an instant impact, and it was maybe one drive, maybe it was 2. Really, it was hard with all of the, that's why I'm going to watch this game again. But there's from how much he played, which it was not very long. This is his stat line. And if it was only, he had 3 solo tackles, 4 tackles in total, and he had a pass breakup. He was not afraid, and I think people forget about the way Josh Proctor plays. He plays the way that Jim Knowles wants a safety to play, and Jim Knowles mentioned that he did not know Jim Knowles' scheme, and it was very difficult to learn Jim Knowles' scheme without being on the field, being able to have that full go because of that compound fracture injury. However, I think you see a guy who's kind of been embracing this mentality, and he's kind of this prototypical safety that Jim Knowles wants to run his defense. He just didn't know what he was going to get because Josh Proctor really hadn't played all that much. But really, in the limited amount of time that he spent on the field today, he kind of showed what an Ohio State safety can be. Okay, so you see this guy in a safety-driven defense that's absolutely everywhere. I mean, he's making plays left and right. He's, getting past breakups. He's involved. And I think that's what Ohio State wants to see. I mean, you didn't see a lot of Proctor. You didn't see a lot of Ronnie Hickman. You didn't see a lot of Tanner McAllister. You saw maybe a little bit more Tanner McAllister, but it's a room that's going to be vital. And I think I came into the Jim Knowles tenure kind of thinking that, and I still think this way, I think it's going to lean out, toward the back 7 in terms of what's going to define this defense. Going into the Jim Knowles tenure, I was focused on the linebackers. I was like, okay, Steel Chambers, like, this is your time to shine. This is his defense, and he's going to kind of grow into it. And I think he's still going to have a breakout year. But the more I think about it, the more I hear Jim Knowles' defense explained the way, the versatility, the multiplicity of what his looks have. Safeties are going to be huge. Okay. Tanner McAllister, Josh Proctor, Ronnie Hickman, vital. And I think Josh Proctor showed a little bit of a preview of that today in that short span, in that, thud period and all that stuff. And you may be like, Colin, you're crazy. You're talking nonsense because we didn't really get to see what Josh Proctor could do. But I really think that, if this is what a safety driven defense is, like, he's going to be vital, and he's going to need to be vital for Ohio State to be successful. So let's look at a little bit more on the offensive side. Actually, before that, Tommy Eichenberg had a great day, 10 tackles. Andre Turrentine had a quiet 9 tackles, 6 solo, 1 broken up pass. Kai Stokes, as we mentioned. Noah Potter coming out late, 2 sacks. Big day. Jaden McKenzie in the middle also. JT Tuimoloau, 2 sacks as well. Big day. Saw a lot of young guys, and we'll get into that here soon when I get kind of a better angle of what this game was. Let's talk offense a little bit. CJ Stroud. There's a lot to be said, and I think we'll get into this now. There's a lot to be said about his kind of connection, his relationship with Dwayne Haskins. And Dwayne Haskins, just before we get started on that, Ohio State did honor Dwayne Haskins with a pregame moment of silence. They had a video ceremony right at halftime where the entire Ohio State team stood and watched on the big screen him being honored. After that, you hear, like, I've never heard Ohio Stadium as silent as it was, as Cameron Babb, the redshirt senior wide receiver, led the Ohio State team in prayer after that video. It was moving, and in a place where, I'm scrambling. I'm usually scrambling to get work done and things, and get that all of this good stuff to you people. But it made me, sit back and just watch, and you see just the emotion flooding these players' faces. And just this huge moment that was shared, and it wasn't one that CJ Stroud wanted to get into post game. I asked him about it, but it was just a moment that they got to share together and honor someone that meant a lot to this program, and to kind of what Ohio State would become. And so, CJ Stroud himself honored Dwayne Haskins. You see with wearing his, obviously they share the number 7, but he was wearing his nameplate in that first drive. Ended up being his only touchdown drive, where he threw a touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's going to be a familiar sentence this year, because that's going to happen a lot. Anyway, but CJ Stroud, his place is set, his production is set. Finished the game with completing 14 of 22 passes for 120 yards and that 1 touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba. But it was the Kyle Mccord and Devin Brown show, and I want to start with Kyle Mccord. It was very, very accurate. Looked very, very good from what I could see. He was he looked confident. He looked composed. He looked like, and I think this makes the big difference between him and Devin Brown, which we'll get into. Kyle McCord looked like he was there before. He's been there before, which he has. Like, he's not a freshman anymore. And like, talking to players like throughout this whole, the spring and things like that, they talk about how Kyle McCord has kind of been, he's been more comfortable. He's grown so much. Ryan Day mentioned that, and how much he's been able to grow over the course of this spring, just because he knows what's going on. He's not a freshman anymore, and he didn't look like a freshman today. 14 of 20 in terms of passes, 129 yards and a touchdown. And then Devin Brown. He looked like a freshman, he looked confident at times. He stepped up into the pocket. He looked like he knew what he was doing, and he does. That's one of the things that Devin Brown was talking about heading into this game, is how, this the speed of the game has kind of, come easy to him. It's not, that much different. The only difference is the defensive line, the defense, the speed of the defense, how the margin for error has grown exponentially because of the speed of opposing defense. And it hasn't helped, he said, because of what Jim Knowles has installed, the things that we did not see during today's game. But I mean, there is some work to be done, and it's easy to kind of go into all of this. Okay, like, he's not ready. It's a clear hierarchy just based on this one game because they weren't giving their proper defense or whatever the heck. But but there is room to improve, and I think Ryan Day knows that. And let's go through his stats real quick. 11 for 24, 141 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 late pick. So 46% completion percentage, not what you want to see from a quarterback, but what you expect from a freshman, a player that's very, very green in this sport, or at this level, excuse me. But I think there's progress to be made. And I think Ryan Day knows that. He was asked about, the hierarchy of the quarterbacks. And I wrote about this the other day. This is kind of the situation that he wants to be in, that he wasn't in last year. You kind of had this hierarchy of talent, whether it was, CJ Stroud at the front, the Heisman finalist, the Heisman kind of maybe even a front runner with him and Bryce Young of Alabama. But and then you kind of go into, so Kyle Mccord, the heir apparent, the guy who's next in line, the guy who has already started the game and kind of knows what's going on. And then third string, Devin Brown, you got the freshman, the all-star, or like the guy with all the expectations. You got this guy that, could be everything for Ohio State, but it's clear down the line. And I think that's, compared to last year where it's like, you have a bunch of these guys who have not proven anything. And then you have two, and CJ Stroud and Jack Miller. And then you have these two coming in. So Kyle McCord as a freshman, you have Quinn Ewers as a freshman, these guys that did not know kind of what to expect. And there is that knowledge gap here. And I think you saw that with early season CJ Stroud, who's very good, but you also saw, his struggles against Oregon, or not exactly Oregon, but just these struggles early on, how the lack of consistency that he had, that he didn't really end up having later in the year after he came back from his 1 game absence. But that's the way Ryan Day would want to have it, that's how he said, I think the quote, if I'm missing this, I apologize, but I think he said, we've been in a lot dicier situations than this. And I think he enjoys that. It's not as big of a room as he wants, but it's a room that he could build something from, which I think is vital. And kind of having that situation, figured out heading into 2022, and especially with Notre Dame leading off the season, it's huge for Ohio State. And I think that's going to be, CJ Stroud is the face of this offense. We all know this. But just to know that going in, I think is going to be massive for Ohio State, especially with what's coming first. Couple more things. Run game, Mayan Williams, Bulldog, bowling ball. Just he's pounding, and he looks very, very. I was talking with a colleague, and he's like, I'll never be able to see him wearing number 3. It looks weird on him and things like that. And I think to an extent, the way he runs, that is true. But he was very good for Ohio State today. 15 rushes, 101 yards, averaging just over 6.5 yards per carry. Evan Pryor is the main story here, though. You have a guy coming off his freshman year, didn't play a lot for Ohio State. He redshirted his first year, I believe. I don't think he played more than 4 games. If I'm mistaken, you guys can correct me, as you guys do. But you have this guy who looks just a lot more comfortable. He looks like a veteran out there at points where, whether it's him running on a speed option, his speed option touchdown, getting the ball off from CJ Stroud and just beating everybody down the sideline. Him in the passing game. And I think that's one of the things that Ryan Day talked about, is just his ability to run the ball, his speed, his elusiveness, his ability to catch the ball, his kind of like he can change an offense. And Ryan Day said that plainly today, that he can change an offense if he's able to find that consistency and keep hold of the football. And I think that's going to be massive for Ohio State. I think he could be a game changer. You saw a lot of tweets from, people like colleagues, fans, whatever, talking about buy into the Evan Pryor hype train. And I think my issue with that coming in was, it's like, okay, yeah, Evan Pryor is going to be good, but like, will he get the chance with Trevion Henderson there still, or Mayan Williams still there? I think you saw today how Evan Pryor could be used for this offense. And I think that could be very, very beneficial for Ohio State. Kind of running down through the receivers, you didn't see a lot of guys that are kind of going to make a huge name for themselves. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 2 catches, 38 yards with that touchdown. You saw Emeka Egbuka, 4 catches on 6 targets, 39 yards. Not a lot of Marvin Harrison Jr. today, just 1 catch for 9 yards, but those guys are going to be fine. Julian Fleming did not play today. Ryan Day said post-game he was day to day. We'll see what that means heading into the fall. But he was just not there today. He was at the game. He just did not play. He was in uniform, did not have his helmet. Anyway, I don't know if I want to get too far into this because I know what this could mean. So let's talk about the tight ends, because we don't know. It seems like, so if you guys don't know my story, I covered the team for 2 years and then left for 2 years, covered preps in Michigan, and then came back. And when I was my first stint covering Ohio State, it seems like every single year, every single process, you see the story of, is this going to be the year of the tight ends? And I think, based on what I've heard and what I've seen from Kevin Wilson, he loves kind of that content. He loves these stories and them talking about kind of the past potential of the tight end room. And you saw that again today. You saw a tight end based kind of, or maybe not a tight end based offense, but an offense that uses its tight ends in the run game. G. Scott Jr. led the team with 5 catches on 6 targets for 40 yards. Not many yards per catch, but he was a consistent option for Ohio State. You saw Joe Royer, who really impressed me on his touchdown reception from Kyle Mccord. Looked like a receiver. He was a receiver in high school, kind of moved to tight end in college just based on his size, and he looked the part. He looked very, very good for Ohio State. So that is, and CJ Stroud said heading into this game that this is a guy to watch, Joe Royer in this offense. So I don't want to get too far along this hype train of saying, oh my God, the tight ends are going to rule, because I don't think they will, especially with this offense with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Jaden Ballard, possibly. You have these guys and the countless freshmen that are coming in. I don't think tight ends will have as prominent of a role as, this game signifies. And I'm kind of afraid to kind of get there because I don't think it will be. But I think, what G. Scott showed, what Joe Royer showed, is that there is the possibility of that happening. And it's something that Ohio State needs. And it seems like based on this performance, you didn't see a lot of, you saw a little bit of Sam Hart, you saw a little bit of Cade Stover, you saw a little bit of Bennett Christian, but especially in the passing game, it was G. Scott and it was Joe Royer. And those were the guys with a lot to prove. And Kevin Wilson has spoken very, very highly of those two. So yeah, that's pretty much my kind of first wave of reactions towards the Ohio State spring game. And there's going to be so much more, guys, coming out of this. So keep it locked to Ohio State, Ohio State's rival site, Scarlet and Gray Report. So just to one final plug, we have a promo heading into by the end of tonight. So I'm recording this on Saturday afternoon. By the end of tonight, that gives you free access to everything that we have, whether it's, recruiting, whether it's team, whether it's the message board. You have access to everything until fall camp starts for free. You can sign up for free. And you're going to get a lot of stuff. And I'd encourage you to join the family. We're building something special. I mean, Zach Carpenter has been a godsend for us, providing recruiting content and just awesome stuff daily. Had a great story on Luke Montgomery's development earlier this week. So please join this family. We're building something cool, and stay tuned for just so much more content from the spring game, from reactions from recruits from the spring game, and just expectations for what could be a very, very special fall for this Ohio State team. At least that's the way that this team sees it heading into the Notre Dame game. So again, my name is Colin Gay. I cover Ohio State for Rivals.com. Join our family. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys on the message boards.